or should I come back to some slide in the next round? If I have, sorry, can't hear you.
You have a couple of minutes.
Okay, so maybe I'll just give so a lot of my work was on, I'll come back to slides in the next round.
Okay.
A lot of my work, for example, has been on Aadhaar. I had never thought of that so much as AI. Increasingly, especially since or November, December, I saw Government of India is telling us that uses a lot of AI. Which is that there's an algorithm which says that when somebody is artificially setting a threshold that this is my facial data or my fingerprint data, and you're teaching an algorithm that when what she's producing as fingerprints and the previous data we have matches say 85%, then it is a match. But there's an algorithm which makes that kind of a decision. Similarly, for faces, right? They are increasingly now, say, UIDI switching to facial authentication, whether in Anganwadis or in even in Narega sites and so on. You may have heard that is causing a lot of chaos. So that is a machine learning algorithm which is being used, which is matching, say, the distance between my eyes or my nose and so on. It is saying what it is statistically matching, like a statistical engine is matching what my enrollment photo showed, what the current photo is showing, and then it is deciding is this the same person or not. And
One.
another thing which UIDI is beginning to use AI is that it is saying, so several states besides that national ID, they also have their state ID, right? Haryana has a Pechan Patra, some Parivar Pechan Patra, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, several of them have it, which have been built from the SRDH, the State Resident Data Hub, which like it is sort of like a sub copy of the Aadhaar data set for that state. And in everything like your electricity consumption, your taxes, your land, your what welfare you use and so on, maybe the state has these 80 parameters on me through that SRDH system. Now they are saying we'll use an algorithm to say when we combine all these data about this person and all the residents in our state, that algorithm can start telling us, is she really poor, is she how many houses does she own, what is her economic status, should she be deserving welfare and so on. So that's a second way in which I think Government of India is thinking of using AI in a big way, that it will hire private companies which will make a machine learning algorithm largely fed on the data and the metadata that is coming to it from the use of Aadhaar and so on. Another way we see algorithm use is, of course, like in gig work and so on, which many of you would be very familiar with. But these are some, small examples. I mean, in how it's beginning to impact us and affect our work and our welfare already. And I specifically looked at Aadhaar as a welfare system and the algorithms being used in it more recently in Rajasthan, in which how they want to use machine learning algorithms and the sort of effects it's having. And I'll show some of that next
Okay.
in the next round of discussion.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Anumeha. Comrade Welkin, if I can ask you to the next question, and if you can jump in here. One was to start off with, is there anything that you would like to add to what Anumeha said about AI and its like delimiting what it is? And the second was I wanted to understand from you. We've also like read reportage about it causing job losses and job losses being predicted in the tech sector in particular in India. The impact of AI, the introduction of AI. So, can you tell us about that? What is the scenario? Is it just do we understand it just as an additional tool, like a machine that is making something easier, or is it changing the work process itself? And can you just related to this? Can you contextualize it with respect to the sort of business model of Indian tech majors? Because we understand that some of these big companies really rely on labor arbitrage, where they're selling manpower, trained, skilled engineering hours in India for cheap to Western clients. Over to you, Comrade.
Thank you, Robert. So, to give I think how I understood or how I see AI right now, the popular ones, the large language models, which are predominantly used by general public as well as IT companies, they are pretty much a large scale pattern recognizing, a pattern based statistical mission. They're not in a way intelligent. They are not anywhere close to the AGI, artificial general intelligence. They are being sold in the media by Microsoft with billions of dollars as investment in the marketing space alone, to create a perspective that they can do everything, they can be adapted to everywhere. But if you remove the noise, technological wise, it's a significant development. It was possible by the scientific development happened from the late 90s, and with the amount of data being collected and the amount of compute power, the data centers we have, it is now made possible. And capitalism, by its design, tends to innovate or revolutionize the technology it requires to do the production, the means of production, so that it can come out of the tendency of rate of reduction of profit. Basically, it needs to come out of the crisis. And when it needs to come out of the crisis, one way it looks at technology, and the one way of coming out of the crisis, it looks as technology as a means to come out. So it invests in technology which revolutionized the way the production is happening. So because of which it's a significant development which we all should encourage. General public should understand. We should use it more often. It has very good capabilities of solving large scale problems which humans could take years or months to solve. This system can solve it pretty quick, but there are also downsides where the environmental question and the control of data and the algorithm which makes the decision, things like that, which we can come at later. But on the employment part, my opinion is they are normalizing the layoff every time when a new technology comes. So if you look at media, they do layoff in every technology names or whenever a major event happens. So, but if you say the net amount of data of the employment data in IT industry, it is always growing. Even in the time of crisis, they grow because IT industry does one particular type of work, which is it makes sure the circulation of capital is made faster, which is basically they are increasing means of production, or they're increasing the production, they're increasing the go-to-market time, they're increasing the time to sell. Then they do the entire circulation, which means the capital revolves faster. Only when the capital revolves faster, you get more profit. So by that logic, IT industry does software development or the information system to all industries to basically help the capitalist system do a faster rotation of the capital. And because of which the technology adaptation is basic for IT industry. So they do adapt to a lot of technology, but at the same time, they don't, if there is enough capital, if there is enough income, they ensure they keep the legacy systems in place. They don't always change to new technology whenever new technology comes in. So it is decided by the quantum of amount or the quantum of profit available for the company. Right now, due to the crisis, war, or the synchronized slowdown mentioned by the IMF just before COVID kicks in, so they all contribute to the adoption of AI. That is how I see it. It's not merely the technical capabilities, because day in and day out, developers find it very hard to use this AI tools to do the software development because it hallucinates. So it creates a lot of unwanted things when you specifically ask a problem to be solved. So it is not a person equivalent tool. It can assist. So end of the day, if I know what the output it is providing, I can make a informed decision. If I don't know what it is doing, like they can't replace an experienced person with 1 year or 2 year college grad and give this tool and make them develop high quality software. It's impossible. But that is the picture they are giving in the media, in the market. It's basically a marketing strategy. So by that, they are creating a hype by which they are trying to sell across all industries, and they are using cost-cutting strategies to reduce people in wherever possible and invest in data centers or invest in new marketing media strategies. So that is what the layoffs what we see. in offices using AI, it's all bogus. Even if you see a report which says 95% of AI projects are defunct, they are not usable. So by this way, the hype is what currently driving the industry, but at the same time, it has huge potential. It is very much necessary for the society and the country, and even the labor. But if we remove the noise, we can actually see the necessary part, and we can move towards what is necessary and what are unnecessary things.
Okay. Thanks, Comrade. There are some questions because some of this is slightly different from the way that some of us have understood, what is being reported and how we've been receiving information. I'm sure that will come up in later rounds. But for now, let me move to Rakhi. So Rakhi, we've heard from software developer, we've heard from Anumeha, and like in the media, when we hear about AI, we hear about the threat to white collar jobs and such like, right? Yet in the manufacturing sector, we also know that automation and other technologies have been causing labor displacement across the board, right? So China has lost millions of jobs in manufacturing over the last, like, since 2010, 2011, right? The workshop factory of the world, sort of. So how do you see it playing out in the Indian sort of manufacturing landscape, in industry, particularly where so-called real stuff is made? Is it having that kind of paradigmatic kind of change, or in that it is changing the work process itself, or how do you see the change of these technologies in industry, in manufacturing particularly?
Thanks, Usman, and very useful to hear both Anumeha and Comrade Welkin. I have a couple slides I thought I would share, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Trying to change it to
We can see.
Yeah. So I think I want to take a step back from AI and approach it from the fourth industrial revolution or industry 4.0 technology perspective. So it's important to, begin by clarifying that when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, many different technologies get grouped together colloquially as, AI or automation, but it's useful to distinguish between a few different things, as you can see on this slide and the next slide. What makes the current moment different is that these technologies are increasingly integrated into entire production systems, from manufacturing and logistics to agriculture and services. It's also important to remember that technological change, and we all know this, but important to reiterate, it does not affect all workers equally. In economies like India, where most workers are informal, the impacts fall disproportionately mostly on women, migrant, and low-income workers who already face structural vulnerabilities. So once these technologies are integrated into production systems, we need to ask how they reshape work and power. Once we understand this, we can start asking how these technologies are transforming work and workers' power in the economy and in sectors where the most vulnerable workers are concentrated. Over the past a few years, there's been hype that this new technological revolution will transform everything. But the dominant narrative has two problems. First, it presents these technologies as inevitable and neutral, as if society has no choice but to adopt them. Second, it treats speed of adoption as the main issues, rather than asking deeper questions about who benefits and who bears the cost. From the perspective of workers, this is not simply a story of innovation. It is a story about power in the production process, as Welkin was also pointing out. Technological change has always reshaped work, but the current phase of automation, it's important to remember this is happening in a context where labor protections are already weakening, unions are under pressure, and global supply chains are restructuring. So the question is not just what technology can do, but how it is being deployed in the political economy of contemporary capitalism. So from the perspective of workers, especially informal workers, the real questions are different. Who controls these technologies, who benefits from them, and what happens to workers when production systems are reorganized around them. When we hear about the fourth industrial revolution, we often imagine robots in factories or AI in office. But for most workers in India, the real question is much simpler. Will technology generate employment or reduce drudgery, or will it eliminate livelihoods altogether? To understand what this technological shift means for workers, we need to look beyond the headlines and examine how production systems themselves are being reorganized. I'm answering your question in a roundabout way. Automation today is not simply about machines replacing workers in individual factories, right? It is instead what we are seeing is the digitization and integration of entire production systems. So three developments are particularly important: the integration through data, automation spreading beyond factories, as well as the use of technology for labor disciplining. So for example, automated warehouses, algorithmic logistics systems, and digitally monitored factories are becoming part of one coordinated production network. This means that control over production shifts upwards towards firms that control the data and the digital infrastructure. Workers are becoming more or can become more interchangeable within a tightly controlled system. And since automation is spreading, we all know examples from real life: logistics, warehouse, gig economy, construction, agriculture, ports, back offices, retail, and delivery system. So in other words, it's transforming entire employment ecosystems, not just individual workplaces, and many of which rely heavily on informal labor. And I think I'm emphasizing that also because it's an NAPM forum where a lot of the informal workers is what we concern ourselves with. And also this automation, as Welkin was also pointing out, in a way that it's often justified as improving productivity. But in practice, it frequently functions as a disciplinary tool. So this changes not just how many workers are employed, but how work itself is organized. I think that's what I'm driving at. So rather than bean counting, did you want to?
No, I was just prompting you that it's 1 minute. You have 1
Okay.
minute.
So in construction, for example, prefabrication mechanized systems are reducing the need for large numbers of manual workers in certain tasks. In agriculture, drones-based spraying or harvesters are reducing the number of labor that are being deployed. Maruti workers tell us that initially, they were introduced to multi-skilling. So they went from managing one machine to one worker managing more than one machine. Years later, it has reached a level of active de-skilling, more informal and fragmented employment relations, shorter duration of employment, non-transferable skills, so no occupational mobility, and they're stuck at industry minimum wage level skills, which is impacting social relations as well because they can't marry and support a factory on such minimal wages. So we should think of this less as AI replacing workers and more as technology reorganizing the entire systems of work in ways that often reduce workers' power, right? So in that process, the workers who are most vulnerable, the informal workers who often have the least voice in shaping these changes, are being impacted as well, not just IT workers and not just workers in the manufacturing sector. I think that's what I'm driving at, that it's a larger, more ecosystem change. So technological change is not just about machines replacing labor. It's about changing the balance of power between workers and employers. I'll stop there now, and we can come back to it again in the next round.
Thanks, Rakhi. There are once again there are a couple of questions that come to mind, but I'll keep them with me for the last session. I'd request others also who are listening in, if you have any questions that are coming to mind, you can keep dropping them in the chat box. I'll pick them up when we reach the third round. Okay, so I just wanted to, since Rakhi mentioned informal workers and sort of a change, not just looking at it as a sector specific change, but a kind of transformation that's in different ways going to affect different sets of workers. One of the ways in which we think of like we have this formal informal kind of divide, right? In the way that we think about the labor market, it is essentially it is in some ways it is a legal fiction, in other ways it becomes very real materially, right? So like vast all of our informal workers actually rely on state social protection for their health and other needs, right? So, and that is one sector in which we've seen some quite negative effects already of this kind of the deployment of uh, tech that may not be adapted to the problem that they were trying to solve in that sector. So I'd like to invite Anumeha to give us some of her reflections on how deployment of this technology or these technologies is having an impact on our social protection systems.
Usman, so I partly wanted to respond a bit to Welkin's this thing too. I probably am a little less optimistic than him about we must all use it and we must all be more accepting of it. I do feel it's not as inevitable that this tech must be this way. And one of the main things I understood about this technology is that there is no one way to even if AI has to be there, there's no one way it must be there. And those of us who are whether journalists, activists, researchers, we are still in a point where especially say groups like NAPM that they can question what should this look like, this future or this this is still to be made, or there are very powerful entities which is the big tech companies which want to take it only a certain way, but there are multiple ways to go about it. And the way they are going about it is we want more and more massive amounts of data through computing power, and they're saying we are running out of chips, we are running out of data. Basically the way capitalism usually functions, that profit for the sake of it. Right now it's in this direction of being in this direction for the sake of it, that is not purpose specific, that we want this computing ability. It's almost the first time I heard it, it sounded bizarre to me, that it's almost like this kind of ego drive and also money and power drive about it, that we want this computing ability almost for the sake of having it. Whereas there are ways in which, if somebody is saying that, okay, there is a particular way you can make an AI which helps you analyze some lung scans, which is specific for that particular purpose. Or maybe there's one particular AI which is useful for that one village. That's also a direction that things can go in, rather than there is a massive way of having these technologies which must go only in a certain way. And that's where the question of ideology, power, money, and so on come in. And I think our role is still to question, especially when India is in this summit, jumping onto this, saying we don't even want to mention the word safety. We are all for innovation. Nilekani is jumping into it and so on. That we all really have to question right now. What are you guys building? What resources are you using? What data are you using? What is the purpose for this? What is the environmental impact? Who is the person training this AI? Which worker is training this AI? And so on. How workers respond and so on. I mean, maybe we can come back in the next round and I'll show some of the slides just to make that point of what I understood as, when they are the way this hunger for data and so on. And one example is say OpenAI and some of the US companies are building it a certain way. And there was this surprising development by China, which was this DeepSeek, the generative AI that they made, which they made it with far fewer resources and far less money. And so there's no one way, and which country goes about it, how it shouldn't become like, oh, we've all just gotten this, इसमें बह के चले गए हैं kind of a way. So is it visible now? Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can
So
see you.
I'll just quickly go over some of this.
Sure.
That, I last time I'd addressed this, the more of the timeline of it. That these are the people, this John McCarthy and Marvin Minsky and all who had coined these terms. They were at this university conference where they came up with it. And why is this not? Yeah, but I think as activists and researchers, ultimately these are the three things we have to keep bringing this back to. I'll skip over some of this, that this is an older system, which is this rule-based system, which is ELIZA, which comes up in mid-60s. And now what we understand of it, which is much more based on this ChatGPT sort of model of data plus compute, will make a certain this thing. I also had a slide in Hindi that it is ये सिर्फ कोई एक टेक्निक नहीं है, उसको भी ह्यूमंस ही क्लीन कर रहे हैं, उसको बना रहे हैं. और किस तरह का उनका एक हंगर है वो डेटा, कंप्यूटर चिप्स, पानी, ऊर्जा वगैरह सब पे. So the way they have scaled up, their hunger for data is visible in this, the training data used in the 50s versus the kind of exponential increase And this is the kind of parameters which ChatGPT has used just in the last 6-7 years. The kind of growth that they are experiencing, or the sort of data and compute that they are trying to deploy, and the rate of growth in that. So they are saying they're almost out of the whole internet to train these machines. That they are saying we are running out of text, we want an energy breakthrough, and so on. And this is also, we should ask these questions, that why is Modi, why is Trump, why are all these people so gung-ho about it and jumping on this bandwagon, that they are putting 500 billions into this, which is many more times what they even put on the moon, and so on. These are some questions which maybe we as researchers and journalists can continue to understand and ask, that this is not one tech, this is multiple technologies. We cannot just take it without asking why is this AI being deployed here, or why is this being made here, and so on. Not treat this, this it drives a car like a human, like that's the PR part of it. When we are trying to demolish the myths and the hypes around it, we still have to keep taking that question back to how is it affecting people, and so on. And this framework is somewhat, it's from the Pulitzer Center, that for each of these stages, we can ask questions. Whose data is it? What happens to privacy rights and consent, and so on? Who are the actors in it? Who are the people it affects, and so on? At the next stage, where they want that compute, what energy and water use, and so on? Where is what are the natural resource base? Who are the communities who are affected at that point? When they are building a model, what is the data it is training on? What are the questions of bias? So if you arrest more Muslims and Dalit people, and you take the arrest data and feed it into an algorithm, and then you try to do predictive policing with it will keep flagging the same people as more likely to commit the crime, right? And then where are you applying it, and so on.
Half
And
a
yeah.
minute, huh? Anumeha? Half a minute. Sorry,
Sure. So yeah, so in some of these examples, which are previous other people's stories about it, that, who made this AI, who cleaned this, somewhere it's underpaid interns in India, in Gurgaon, Noida, and so on. We'll have workers who are doing this. What is it doing to the water in US? Has massive protests going on right now about these data centers, and so on. It's also coming here. This is for welfare. I mean, there are multiple. This is a graph on which are the data sets being used to train these, the bigger AI systems that we have. That is predominantly Western data that is training these. This is one like image of a data center. Yeah. That increasingly these tech companies are consuming so much more electricity than even what 100 countries consume. The scale of what they are trying to do, and how it will affect our planet and us, for us to understand some of this. And we are already beginning to see it in India, that, this happened in Telangana, that people are already protesting one data center. Whereas states like Rajasthan are being so gung-ho about it, that no, we want a whole township of data centers. So right now, I mean, my concern is that it will come too fast at us. I'll stop. I mean, I think some of these we can, that it shouldn't be that in our communities and so on, suddenly it is being given to us as a fait accompli. ये तो अभी करना ही है. This is the direction we must go in. We have to put in resources, money, land, water, workers, everything into it. We still have to question. We have to try and understand what it is, and still question it, and not accept it as inevitable. And if there has to be AI, it should be people purpose specific, and so on. It shouldn't be like this one Nilekani or one Gates or one Sam Altman deciding for the rest of the planet and people. And so I think we will have to keep investing our energies into understanding this and questioning it on all those parameters.
Right. No, thanks, Anumeha. Thanks a lot. And yeah, we'll come back to like you had quite a lot of more stuff that perhaps you wanted to say there in the slides, but we can come back to it in a little bit. But Comrade Welkin, if I can throw this question back to you, like, because you basically told us to also keep in mind the fact that technological progress, this is progress, right? The development of these technologies does symbolize progress, but there are also question marks about it, right? Which I'm sure you acknowledge, and Anumeha has also kind of pointed at them. So the question that I really wanted to put towards you was: is this the only kind of way in which these technologies or this progress can be realized? The LLMs in particular that we are using nowadays. And what implications does that have? Does the answer of like what you're going to answer to that question? What implications does that have for our education system? Because that is kind of somewhere it is key in our capacity to engage with these technologies as well, right? So if you can share your thoughts on these.
Yeah. So LLMs, as I told earlier, it is the most propaganda invest or the most talked about in the media, and I think it's due to the billions of dollars ingested by Microsoft to sell OpenAI and to popularize that. And subsequently, NVIDIA, I think another multinational corporations followed that suit. But right now, if you see, it is not only the LLMs. There are other significant technological innovations like uh, transformer model, attention. They are a bit technical, but the thing is, uh, deep learning has enabled a huge problem-solving capability compared to the machine learning era. So attention is all you need. A research paper has actually created a significant or anything happens now, it is actually part of the attention is all you need paper. Without attention paper, there is no significant meaningful development happening right now. So the technical advancements are mind-boggling if you see how the linear algebra is being used to solve huge huge number of problem through approximations and statistical methods are something magnificent, and how the compute power and the data is being used to bring meaningful uh, outcomes like what Google did with protein folding. So protein folding is something the species level, humanity level challenge, which now we are able to address that. Similarly, for drug discovery, there are a lot of things happening which would improve the humanity on the whole. But technology has that capability. But as in the since it is coming out of capitalism's need, not for the people's or the working class need, it inherently goes to only the profit-making areas. It does not solve. It does not find drugs for cancer unless until it is going to give them 100 years of royalty, and only the super rich would be affordable to pay the amount they are going to invest in that. So definitely, it would mean a lot of control, and it is only for the profit making, not for the public good. So our approach should be to identify demands, to ask or to demand for better usage and better control. I think that means we need to ask about more accessibility to infra, which is the compute, memory, storage, which is not available to the masses. It is still available, whatever the crores of rupees government is at least told that they'll be investing, Indian government. It is only for the corporates. So the technicality is it is not going to help India positively, but definitely it is going to impact in the environment, the labor, health of the working class of India. Probably we can delve into that later. But the point is, technology, if people are not understanding and demanding control over it, there is no benefit out of it. It is going to control us. It is going to divide us. It is going to act against us in all possible means. The impact on education, and I think the other important point is also on health. We need to discuss in detail, because technology, whenever a technology comes in, they propagate that it is going to improve productivity. Definitely, technology is going to improve productivity in their sense of productivity. But at the same time, it is going to increase the intensity of work, which means capitalism not going to give you 6 hours of workday because introducing AI. They're going to uh, give more work, which means because of AI, because of all other technology getting into your work, you will be end up doing 10x or 100x times of work compared what a person did 10 years back. So, which means more stress, more things running in your brain. People get solution when they bath. People get solution when they in the toilet, or when they travel, when they sleep, because all time my brain is working because of the intensity of work getting increased. So that also means I need a considerable number of focus to be given to a problem. If I change, if I do context switch, I will not be able to follow back, or I need to spend more time. So I have to sit in a place. So the mental and the physical problem coming up with this intensity, the increase in intensity of work is something huge, which I think needs more debate, more discussion, and demands formulated around that. On education, what my understanding is, we lack the basic and okay, we lack basic foundation on the education to even comprehend the capability of technologies emerging, because of which we end up being only users. We end up being only users of operating system like Microsoft. We end up using softwares like SAP to build things on top of it. We are not creating SAP. We are not creating operating systems. We are not creating AIs. Even what the Sarvam, the Indian-based startup, they are claiming, it's not actually creating AI. They are repurposing things. They are relabeling things. So they are not. We are not innovators because we lack fundamental. We lack fundamental education like math, science, and things like that. And also, we for the existing population, we don't give them a right education to bridge the gap between what is needed from the education system we had. So there is a huge gap, and I think the education system reskilling part is something neglected, or whatever they claim to have, like Digital India, is something. It's a farce. It is nowhere related to what is needed, and it is going to definitely increase the precarity, and people are going to become more vulnerable, and the family going to be more vulnerable. And considering the deteriorating in health and the social conditions, it is going to be a disaster in the society if it is not given addressed with right demands and won over that.
Okay, thank you, comrade. That was very, I think, gives pause for thought. what you're saying just now. So I'm sure there are people who have thoughts on it in the room as well. Please drop your questions in the chat box, and we'll come back to them after this question, the last question to Rakhi, that is. So we've heard a lot of thoughts around how it is impacting specific sectors, but also the thing that you said about its wider kind of transformation. I want to come back to like the ideas that you had discussed in your first round. What are the If I think of it not from the workers' point of view and not from the workspace point of view, but from a point of view of organizing, right? Given that it is transforming the way that work is getting organized, what are the kind of challenges for labor activists, for trade unionists, for labor organizers that a changed world is throwing up?
Yeah, that's a very important question, and I'll ditch the slides, even though I do have them. But yeah, and again, I'm taking the wider view, because it's not just AI in work, but it's also the whole bag of technologies, automation, AI, and it's fundamentally debate about work and livelihoods. So some of these changes are having serious consequences for workers' bargaining power. I mean, I already spoke in the first round about the fact that unions are under pressure, global supply chains are being restructured. And also, we need to remember that historically, workers' power in industry came from their strategic position in the production process, right? So if workers stopped work at a key point in production, the entire system could be halted. But digitalization and automation are altering this relationship in let's say, I can identify three ways to begin with. It's fragmentation of the workforce. It's a reduced labor share in production and privatization of productivity gains. It's expansion of surveillance and managerial control. So what does that mean? It means that production chains are becoming more fragmented, right? So workers, instead of a large workforce in a single factory, workers are now distributed across subcontracting chains, informal employment, logistics chains, outsourced. So collective organizing becomes much more difficult. And as Welkin was also pointing out, even when technology increases productivity, gains are usually captured by large corporations, platform firms, and corporations controlling data infrastructure. Workers rarely get a share in these benefits. So automation can also potentially reduce the proportion of labor involved in certain stages of production. And as I was giving the Maruti example, even de-skill them or make them easily replaceable, making informalized precarious employment even more informalized and precarious. So even when jobs are not eliminated, workers' leverage within the production process can decline. And I added to that, as others have also pointed out, digital technologies are allowing unprecedented levels of monitoring. So from biometric attendance systems to algorithmic performance tracking, workers are increasingly being managed by software rather than by supervisors. So, decisions in the workplace are opaque, accountability is limited, and resistance becomes more difficult. And we're ending up with greater surveillance but fewer rights in the workplace. So if technology, and the question that you asked, if technology is reshaping in these ways, then the question becomes, how can workers and people's movements respond to it? So, these are strategic challenges. So unions will have to change or rethink organizing in at least three ways. We have to think of organizing across supply chains. We have to make technology a labor issue and address digital control and surveillance. We have to reclaim the politics of technology, something that Anumeha and Welkin have also talked about. And we have to build alliances. I just quickly speak a little more about each of these. So if you're being fragmented across supply chains, workers who are technically employed by many employers may actually be part of one production system, right? So organizing strategies therefore need to address entire supply chains and not just individual workplaces. Similarly, as Welkin was also pointing out, workers' organizations need to engage directly with technological change. Algorithmic management and data control are labor issues. This means we need to demand rights such as informed consent and transparency in digital systems, limits on workplace surveillance technologies. We need to have, as Welkin was also pointing out and Anumeha pointed out, worker participation in decisions about automation and deployment of all kinds of technologies, even AI. And we need a fair share in productivity gains. Real wages have been falling because productivity gains have not been translating into wages. And in several parts of the world, workers and unions have begun negotiating technology agreements to regulate introduction as well as how they work. But I think more importantly, as both Anumeha and Welkin were pointing out, we need to challenge the idea that technological change is purely technical. It's a political decision. How it is deployed, where it is deployed, it's also political. So technology itself is not the enemy. The real issue is who could, as Welkin was saying, right? Itself is not the enemy. But the real issue is who controls technology, how is it deployed, to what end, who's making profits off of it, is there going to be a sharing, and more importantly, I think even from particularly the informal sector, as I said earlier, will it improve livelihoods? Will it reduce drudgery? Will it help address occupational health and safety issues? Will it distribute productivity gains? Thanks. So since the issues raised by automation and digitalization are not limited to one sector, right? It's in construction, it's in manufacturing, it's in agriculture, it's in the IT sector, small producers, and as Anumeha also pointed out, citizens who depend on public services. So can we learn from the larger farmers' mobilizations of 2021, who showed us how broad coalitions can challenge powerful economic interests? So similarly, can the responses to the technological transformation of the economy Can we have alliances between labor movement, farmers' organizations, broader democratic movements, various groups like the NAPM as well? And can we reclaim the debate about the future of work, right? These are political questions, not technical questions, as others have also pointed out. Yeah, I mean, lastly, I'll just say that if workers are excluded from decisions about technology, then the fourth industrial revolution will only deepen inequality and weaken labor power, as we're already seeing. So that's why, as the title of your talk, I mean, of this session, that it's important to center the perspectives of workers, especially informal workers as well, to any discussion on the future of technology, because technology does not determine our future, power does. So the real issue is not AI. The real issue is who controls AI, data, and technology in our society. And the future of work cannot be decided only in tech labs and corporate boardrooms. It also has to be decided in workplaces, unions, and social movements. And to do that, we need to organize, build worker power in order to shape the technological future as well as the future of work.
Thanks, Rakhi. Thanks so much. So we overshot our time a little bit for these two rounds. So I'll request you guys for the third round to limit yourselves to 4 to 5 minutes. So this round is supposed to be a clean slate. So it's for all three of you to reflect back on everything that we've been speaking about so far, and if you think that anything has been missing from our discussion that came to your mind but you felt could not be accommodated in the questions, then you can speak to those. So I'd invite Anumeha to go first. And just a prompt that I wanted to give from my end was, we've been talking about technology and these technologies from a sort of a capital labor or a state capital kind of perspective. It's also like what you were saying was actually talking to how it's reshaping state citizen relationships. It's kind of import for our social contract, right? If it becomes that pervasive. So if that is something that you would like to reflect on at all, that is something from my side. But otherwise, the floor is yours for the next 4 minutes.
Sure. I think that it is not only this current tech phase, maybe for the last 20, 30 years and so on, since they had more electronic systems and all, since then itself, I think they do find a large mass of people superfluous, right? Which is why we have, I mean, partly the welfare politics, partly even the cash transfer in every election, right? That they'll say so much for the unemployed, so much for women in those households and so on. I do feel like, so it's not that I have a very clearly thought out full hypothesis about it, but I feel one can see that already happening, that they know there are not these, like it's a thing of the past. Second World War, at us time pe people were thinking there will be standard employment and there will be these great jobs, you will retire, you will have savings and so on. I do feel that's already a thing of the past in the last 40 years, and precarity is sort of is the norm. So then we do have to think with that, that what do we do with that? There are some writers who try to address it in that way itself. But so yeah, I mean, so one aspect is welfare, where I think it'll, that there I do see welfare plus surveillance getting far worse. That where we are right now, I imagine this might become worse in the next 10 years, where more of these profiles, these digital profiles that they are, so, as they are calling it. So when I visit Rajasthan government offices, I find one part of them is working on, they'll have some massive 2000 crore tender for face scanning, road scanning, the number plate, automatic reading, all of that. That work is going on, in which they will contract that out to private corporations. And at the same time, say Rajasthan has recently hired Deloitte, that you will build digital profiles of every resident in the state. More focuses on the poor. And literally, the tender document says this will be the single source of truth. They have no sense of irony about it. They are saying that your data, it's not who you claim to be, and your data is what tells us the truth about you. And I think like part of being human is how we make meaning of our lives, right? What do we make of our experiences? And it can keep changing, our identity can keep changing and shifting. And I think the impulse here, whether it is these large corporations or the state, is to fix your identity, is to fix how to make sense of you. And that impulse comes partly from because they find us unmanageable as workers and so on. We are superfluous and we are unmanageable both. I think that's how they see us at the same time. So one thing is that when we are saying that this is, this tech is going to be so hard and so on, I do feel like I find it surprising that in the last few months and among the most organized groups now is the gig workers,
Right.
right? They're constantly going on strikes. I haven't reported in great detail about the December one, but they were like, oh, it's New Year's is coming. You'll all be ordering your food. We are going on strike, right? Same with the Uber and so on, that Sheikh Salahuddin and all of Telangana that they have gone to. Like, I find them far more organized right now than some of the traditional sectors. That
Right.
they have all coordinated on mobile phones. They never meet each other, but everybody is on some massive number of WhatsApp groups and all. So, for sure, that is going on. In NCR, in the National Capital Region, we also saw big protests by Amazon workers and so on. And more recently, I mean, it was more an infrastructure projects pay protests
Mm.
that we had that Panipat oil refinery. I was in Panipat last week.
Mm.
And it was mainly construction workers, but these massive, like the scale, maybe the technology, other kinds of technologies have made those sort of scales possible. They were trying to upgrade that refinery capacity, make the petrochemical complex bigger so that India is more Atmanirbhar and so on. But there were 40,000 workers at one site. Most of them are short term contract workers and they go from refinery to refinery. So there had already been protests going on in Barauni.
Mm.
The Panipat workers, many of whom are from Bihar, were following it on their mobile phones and so on. They had this big protest in which they thought some accident has occurred and two workers have died. They went on some rampage for 5 days, work shut down 5, 6 days. They're saying the construction target went behind by 1 year. And a day later or 2 days later, the same thing happened on this ArcelorMittal site in Gujarat. So literally this Bihar, Haryana and Gujarat, these three massive protests occurred in which the workers were not, like it's not the traditional way of organizing, but there was a rebellion. We don't know yet to what extent, how does power shift? How do these entities, whether the public sector units or these contractors respond? Do they respond with greater repression? Do they increase the electronic surveillance of them and so on? But I do feel this push and pull is constantly going on.
Mm.
I can stop there. And in Aadhaar and so on, I find it a bit, worrying that the more facial recognition and facial authentication, they are calling it, they are starting to use. I think they are going to routinize this. They are making people very, like not react to that. Facial scans will become so common for your food, for your pension, for your work, that when our rights about it are not clear
Mm.
and covert surveillance is possible with facial technology, you're making it so widespread in welfare.
Mm.
How you build on that, I do feel that's a
Mm.
very problematic direction which one needs to challenge.
It's almost a complete sort of a 180 about turn from, if I think back like 20, 25 years, when you had to really lado, jhagdo and struggle to get like these laws, right, which are our rights-based development which give us these entitlements. From there to how they've, in a sense, used certain kinds of technologies to hollow those entitlements also out, where they've become, acts of benevolence of the state. Where, as you say, your presence actually, आपका वजूद नहीं matter करता है. What the data says actually counts for more. So, okay.
Sorry, I just in Rajasthan and also in other states, they've also said they'll make a data exchange,
Mm.
which the official explaining to me said it will be like Amazon, where a startup can go buy certain data sets and exit. So literally, they talk about monetizing data. 2019 Economic Survey spoke like that.
Mm.
That we are producing all this data, which is for startups to come and purchase and make whatever they want to make of it. So
Mm.
they're extracting this data from it, inconveniencing people, sending it back, saying your fingerprint not working, your face not working, your whatever, your data error, and so on, so on. But then also profiting of it at the same time. The state is profiting of it. So, like, blatantly.
Right, right. Okay, Comrade Welkin, reflections on the discussion so far, and any other thoughts that you might want to add. And just from my side, a kind of prompt that what is it going to take for we can see just now how corporates and sort of state are harnessing the advance in technology towards pulling in certain kind of direction, pulling society in a certain kind of direction. What will it take for the those kind of advancements to take us in a more progressive direction? What will be required for? So in just a line, what is to be done?
Okay. Okay. So, couple of areas I'll touch. One on what can be done. I think to change the direction of how technology can be used for the masses or for the class, working class. We need basic things like the democratic workplace. We don't have democratic workplace. So only then there will be some kind of forum to at least raise their voice to make the decision makers accountable. Otherwise, our workplaces are basically authoritative, and they do all kind of decisions without consulting, and they end up uh, taking decisions which even they don't understand the implications of it, because of which, like from Google's Deep Brain, one of the founding scientists of Google's Deep Brain came out and argued that we need 6 months moratorium on the AI development because it is going out of control. The implications are going to be huge, things like that. So we need the workplace to be democratic. So all demands which makes workplace democratic is something the fundamental, I think, towards controlling the technology. Because that is where technologies like AIs are made. Not only AI, all technologies are made. So without working towards democracy at the workplace, we will not have pretty much an accountable, a transparent aspect of how technologies are being used. The other aspects are to handle the implications of the technology. Technologies are, as I told, they are in a way creating a huge impact on the health and environment as well as the society. So we should start with redefining certain demands, which are basically the trade unions and people movements usually put forth. Things like 8 hours workday, which we should change. We should talk about 6 hours workday, which would, one, increase the number of employment. So basically 4 shift, increase the employment with the existing capacity of whatever the formal employment we have. And we need to give an idea to the class, working class, on how a workday can be. We should move. We should redefine that. We should so wherever I can, I talk about a ratio of 8:6:5:5, which is basically 8 hours of sleep, 6 hours of work, 5 hours of private time, 5 hours of personal time. So only with that we can counter all the technological advancements, and we can also get the positive aspects of it, move away from tragedy. Without those those fundamental things, we will not be able to actually bring anything meaningful out of it. And probably on added to that, we can have right to disconnect, something most of the countries are now adding to their decent work framework. So such kind of things can be added. But in our labor policy, we don't even have a word called mental health problems. Even in the labor code or the previous whatever the labor laws we had, so-called the 70 years of after reform, what the BJP claims to do, don't even have a mental health problem in their word, or the word in the document, which gives their insensitivity to what is happening in the society. But the World Health Organization talks, or the data providing is something totally different. So all the technological development and the dialogues or the big capitalist perspective of make people work for 70 hours, 90 hours a week, it is going to destroy the society health. So we need to demand for more health and safety in a more holistic way, and start formulating demands from that. So health as a right should be the fundamental aspect for that. Without going in that direction, I don't think we can address the implications. And the other aspect of one comes to my mind is the algorithmic management, or the transparency and regulation, which China does that. So China example is something beautiful. So irrespective of your product's proprietariness or the legal license behind it. It can be open source, it can be proprietary, it can be your software, anything. The decision-making algorithm should be transparent, should be audited, can be audited. So that would actually make a lot of things that only visible to us, because when we need to take AI to the masses, we need to bring a lot of transparency into the system so that they understand how the decisions are made. And the data should be available in public, so that, like how weather data is being used to predict whether, not only by the official department, by even the independent activists, just out of the possibility from the availability of data and the knowledge they can gather through the internet. So we need to fight for the accessibility. We need to create more demands, so that we need to, I think, move towards more reforming the demands with generally the people movements and the trade union movements put.
Right.
As the other panelists put, we need to bring technology to all the progressive elements of your dialogue. Otherwise, we can't consider it as a tech-driven or technologist area. It is part of everyday work, everyday life. So we should start claiming that.
Right. Fantastic. Thanks, comrade. This the question is basically how to democratize tech, right? I mean, and like reforming these demands and bringing it into the agenda of actors who are seen to be working in other domains, I think is exactly where we are at just now and what we'd like to learn. So, Rakhi, your thoughts on the discussion so far? How do we, like, you've spoken about building alliances, and I didn't know this, that they have this algorithmic review thing happening in China. Like, that is something that our gig workers and others. Like, this is one of our main demand. Like, should open the black box, right? Let us know how the decisions are getting made. It'd be fantastic if something like this could actually become a strong demand here and get realized. So, but your thoughts?
No, really, in the interest of time, because I think we should open it up for discussion. I think I just want to bring us back. I mean, and bring us back to reality a little bit, that we've been doing consistently, and Anumeha has gestured towards this whole, disposable workers notion. That's what our labor codes are also doing, right? And the change in labor laws and the jurisprudence around labor issues is doing that. That this small elite skilled workers that are required alongside these technologies are going to be recognized in law and given some rights and protected, and the rest of you, Ram bharose, matlab, you're on your own, deal with it. Alongside that, as we see in the Ram Nivas judgment of last December, echoing what they've been saying throughout since 2012 in the Maruti case, they talk about, demanding any kind of working class rights, any kind of labor rights, is anti-national. It's seen as going against national interest. You have to this narrative of sacrifice, for the nation. Why should the burden all come on the working class shoulders, is the question that we're asking. And as Comrade Welkin is also saying, we need to democratize, but we also need to remember this is the corporate plus state design, and we really need to go back to the drawing board to build worker power. We've done it in previous eras of technological change. We can do it again. I'll stop there on this hopeful note. But the challenges are immense, and I think we do need to, as Ambedkar said, educate, agitate, and organize. We need to really do that, but in new ways suited to the challenges we are facing. But educate, I do say, because we don't understand these technologies and its impact. We need to educate ourselves, and we do need to take it in simple forms. We need to talk to workers and how it's impacting them, and also strategize with the workers about it. And we need to organize around these fundamental questions about democratizing technology and ensuring it works for workers and for ordinary people, and not just for profit making of corporates and states. Anumeha, I didn't know that the state was also profiting, but I'm not surprised that they're so actively profiting, but I'm not surprised. I'll stop there let's open it up, I guess.
Yeah, let's we have a few minutes. But if any of our speakers really have to leave, then please, you've given us enough of your time. But if there are any questions from the floor, it'd be great to have them and have you guys reflect on them. So open to the floor. I see Prasad and Praveen who've joined, who are very regular and important members in NAPM, as are others present here. But Prasad, I was remembering you particularly because Comrade Welkin speaking about health and mental health, in particularly, and Prasad sort of coordinates the health forum within NAPM. So if you had any thoughts about that, and otherwise, Ban is here, Rohan, Akanksha, Kongli. If any of you have any questions, please do. You can just raise your hands or open your mic and talk.
I just wanted to, say that I really, I Googled Welkin's site only just now. I'm really, I think that is, one has to flip it around, and say that, now that you have the tech, give us 6 hours. It's happening a lot in other countries. One doesn't hear it that much in India, but I think people would relate more to that. I think workers would relate to it because it is taking a toll on people's lives, family lives, health. And increasingly all the white collar this thing too, right?
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think more people relate to it.
Mm. And wasn't that always the pitch, that technological advancement is going to free us, make us more free, and here is Narayan Murthy telling us work 70 hours, the other guy is telling work 90 hours and contribute to nation building or other. Nation building is also happening to, when we are an already arid and hot country, we're going to host data centers and we are going to basically provide our data to firms to improve their tools and to improve their products. It's bizarre. I mean, also like what Conrad Welkin is saying, right? It's not a matter of chance that this is happening. In a sense, we have digital India, but it's making its consumers of proprietary owners who are sitting elsewhere, rather than giving us the capacities to be more active kind of players in this space. I see Rohan, your hand is up. Go ahead, Rohan.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's the first time actually I'm joining the forum. The question was for Anumeha, especially about the data that the government is sharing with startups. Are there any other motives or any other claimed motives with which the government is moving on to algorithmic-based facial recognition or fingerprint recognition, or what are the other motives with which the government is moving on with it, or is it just to get on the technological bandwagon, hoping that something comes out of that, or are there any real reasons with which the government is actually doubling down on tech when it comes to welfare?
Of course, the stated reasons are efficiency and weeding out corruption and removing duplication. And the data selling will be done in the name of enterprise, right? But if you visit any of these states, or I don't know, even if you're from Delhi, I mean, if you go anywhere where any of that process is on, or if you simply go to one of the Aadhaar correction centers, one can see for oneself how efficient it is, or how correct it is. It's full of glitches and so on. I mean, that's their stated reason, but I think overall it helps. It sort of flips that, what was the RTI framework, right? That make the state transparent to us who are the claim makers and we are the citizens. Now it's like we should be transparent to the state all the time, that they will decide what is our real identity and who we really are, what are we claiming to do, and so on. And of course, I think it has a chilling effect. The more you know that the state has on you, and I mean, I think we'll see it more and more, or maybe over the next 10 years or 15 years and so on. So I think it serves this purpose of surveillance, of control, of and I think it's also an urge to remove the lower bureaucrat. There's also often a question of trust, that they'll say, I in Jaipur know what is true, and I don't want to trust the block official, I don't want to trust the district official. And so I saw examples in Rajasthan where somebody's if she's Ganga Devi and her name has been wrongly written as Ganga Singh, people will tell her you have to now go 300 kilometers to go fix this, because they removed the power of the lower official to fix it, saying the lower official is corrupt. But it threw up these kind of very absurd situations. So the claim is that this is cashless, presenceless, meaning that you don't have to go anywhere. All services come to your house. But the opposite happens, that you have to physically take yourself 300 kilometers to make a data correction. Or if somebody is bedridden and their pension is not coming, you have to literally carry them physically so that they can go give their fingerprints and so on. So I think it serves the state interest both in cutting down welfare, in increasing surveillance, in having partnerships with private corporations, and so on.
Just a follow-up question. So I had briefly worked with MKSS on Manrega, and there you understood that you have the NMMS system and the pictures are being clicked, but there's hardly any backend infrastructure wherein there is actually any real facial recognition or any sort of verification system actually going on. So it's just pictures being clicked for the sake of it being clicked, or to increase the bureaucratic hurdles in Manrega. But is there actually a backend system wherein these faces are, or these pictures are being analyzed and some sort of verification being done, or is it like a hollow system out there?
So I think there are two different systems. The one you're talking about is now no longer, I mean, they have switched to a different system. That one was that they had to have any image, right? And every time I went to Rajasthan, activists would tell me, oh, you can make a goat stand there, you can make a motorcycle stand there, and it's very easy to fool that system. So these sort of stories always go on, right? You must have also encountered them in the village. Ki your finger is not working, go like wash it with lemon juice, put like whatever Boro Plus on it. Now they're saying, because they're checking our faces, go wash your face for facial authentication and so on. So that app is a different one. Now what they are doing is they are using something called the Face RD app, Face Registered Devices app. A new investigation is saying it possibly uses something, a Google ML kit. Not that Google has provided it and so on, but UIDI, the Aadhaar agency, may have built some of that, the app that they are installing on phones to scan our faces using this Google ML kit. And they are matching our face to, if I enrolled 10 years ago, to my face then. Because they first, when they kept doing fingerprints, they encountered like tons of fraud. A lot of biometric spoofing and so on occurred. 11% of all the cyber fraud in India was related to this. Pretty high numbers. So there was that, and there was cost of devices, cost of updating the devices, and so on. And now they are finding that face is much more easier to do. It's easier to integrate with AI. It's easy to do with mobile. And again, I think in the medium term, they can see that it builds up more control and surveillance for the government. So there's a slight shift in the system that you witnessed, and what right now they have switched to a different app.
Got it. Thank you. So,
I mean, the urge to centralize also, right? I mean, it's just, I mean, we had a three-tier form of governance. The bottom tier is just being annihilated completely. Like, I remember 10 years ago, I was working in Assam on a monitoring sort of system that they devised for ICDS, right? But so in ICD, you can essentially you plot the kids' development, like growth data, and then if it falls below a certain rank in a parameter, that gets flagged in the system. So somebody sitting in the collector's office then knows, okay, this kid needs this. But like with this monitoring,
It's back, yeah.
I sorry, my connection I think just wobbled a bit. But
Like
yeah,
frozen? Ah, there he is.
yeah, sorry, my connection.
You're muted, Usman.
Am I back now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, sorry, my connection wobbled and I think I went on speaking and then I realized I'm not I'm not audible to anyone. Yeah, no. Now the urge to centralize, even when it's coming from a good place, right? It's often so because what you end up doing is you use the monitoring system to then make that Anganwadi worker who has so many other duties and who has so many other things to take care of. You put so much more, you intensify the work process so much more for them because they're receiving then tens of calls for any minute this thing that changes that happen without there being enough support provided to them. So what they ended up doing in response, what we found was that they gamed the system. They knew, okay, whatever my count is coming, if I just report it as though this child is growing at, just about in that band which is acceptable, after some time, all of them realized, okay, if you just report it like that, you will stop getting these calls. So unless and until you strengthen local democracy, that you make accountability in the face-to-face kind of community possible, then you're not going to have, it's not going to give you the results that you thought it was going to give you. And the other thing was that we tend to kind of, I think, use these technology like the ML kit that you mentioned about for using for facial recognition. I don't think that that Google also says that that can be used in that way. That they didn't consult Google that this can be used for this problem. So you're using solutions that don't apply to the kind of problems that you're trying to solve. You just think you have a solution at hand, so laga do, and but that results in grave kind of miscarriages of justice, etc. Okay, any last thoughts, guys? Otherwise, we can begin to wind up.
Can I ask Welkin, what is the response to 6 hour when you say it? I mean, what is the response you get, whether from organization or from workers, about this demand?
Hmm.
Yeah, sorry, I moved away from the screen. Okay, so the 6 hours response is initially we got questions how it is possible, it can't be done, things like that. But people, when the idea we have is we need to give an alternate vision. Without alternate vision, there is no hope. So legally we have 8 hours or so. So, but it's not being practiced. It is not enough to just demand X amount of hours necessary. So the focus should be not on the 6 hours work, but on the 5 hours of private time and the 5 hours of personal time. Why that is needed, why you need to work on your health, on physical health, mental health, why you need to be with the family or a society. That then results in the necessity of 6 hours work, because you can't reduce in the sleep time of 8 hours work. You need to touch on the work hours, and then you can argue that's because of the technological advancements, it is now very much possible, and you are doing pretty much faster than what you do just last year because of the all AI and the Copilot, things like that. So it is getting good response. But if you see the trade union movement, but with the general public, it is resonating. Our voice, it is very limited. So wherever possible, we are talking about it. Even all our union T-shirts have 6 hours workday demands. So wherever we go for, we do health health wellness or wellness activities where we do collective walk, collective exercise, things like that in locality based. So every time people, the first question they get introduced is through the 6 hours demand. So it is very, very good demand from the response. But on the trade union movement per se, we still are not able to comprehend the necessity of the health or the social impact technology have created and the productivity gain capitalist system have created, and how to translate that as a demand. We are still stuck with 8 hours, and also perspective that 8 hours demand, we can't win. So let it be there. Why are you demanding 6 hours when we can't even win 8 hours? But the point is, it's not about winning. It is about giving idea. It is giving hope.
Yeah.
I think that is what something we need to pitch on.
Yeah. If they think we are useless, we should embrace it. There are friends and colleagues in Delhi and Haryana who would be very interested in discussing this vision more. Connect.
True. But at least all the refinery workers, construction workers, one of their main demands is 8 hours of work. Bring it down. So the demand is certainly there at the ground level. Let's see whether it translates into an actual gain of some kind.
Probably, I had one question for you as well. You were saying that numbers of recruitment in the tech sector have constantly stayed up, right? but like it doesn't square. How does it, like, I just wanted to understand how does it square with what we keep hearing about advancements like that, like for instance, just to take one example, Claude's capability of helping with Cobalt's code, right, which is supposedly takes reduces months of work for engineers. Now, why would that, if that is true, then wouldn't that require a company to put less engineers on the job? And similarly, in if you know the kind of efficiency, let's say that it is giving you in developing code, which then needs to be verified and vetted by engineers and all of that, but not written block by block by block, wouldn't that then necessitate that you can have fewer engineers for that job? So, so far, I understand that the tech sector has, despite different crises, has recruitment has continued, although it is becoming more precarious. But with isn't this a new, different kind of challenge now that the industry is facing? And in that, how can we say with certainty that numbers will continue to remain up?
I'll take some time to explain that. Why I say the numbers would continue to go up, and it is not a major issue for the software development or the software maintenance works, which is happening, which is the major part of work happening in India.
Yeah.
But if you see IT industry, there are two major categories. One is the one which does the software design, not design, so the software building, architect, or the operations part of the software, and the maintenance part of the so which is basically improving, continuous improvement. So that is one major section. I'm going to talk about that. The other section, which is the IT enabled service, which does data processing, data entry, that is totally different story. But for the IT, when media means tech or the academic means tech, they talk about the first section of employment. So that is who they mean. So to understand the logic, we should understand how the IT industry works basically. So IT industry works by automating or de-skilling employees in all industry. So which means they need to go to an industry, study about how a particular skill is being employed, document it, make it into a software. So
Right.
that particular skill gets de-skilled, and the job will be transformed into something new in a bank or in a healthcare or in a manufacturing. So if an industry should do that kind of de-skilling in large scale across the globe, it would rapidly do it to itself. So by that nature, all employees in IT industry will be on continuous learning. They will be learning everything and unlearning everything day in and day out. It may be restricted to particular domain, or it may be restricted to particular types of software. But if you abstract it, everybody will be learning, everybody will be changing. So softwares will come and go, technologies will come and go. So every project will demand new set of skills. It may overlap the previous project, or it may be with a new set of skills. So the change in technology always happens. For example, when a person joins in a company, they may be a Java developer. But after 5 years, they will not be a Java developer. They will be into particular software or particular framework or particular domain expert. So they will evolve. So because of which there is no one technology which can be there and replace a particular individual. These technologies, what basically does is it based on a pattern, it replicates whatever it knows through whatever it learned. And the Claude's claim, definitely it does better programming. So it does not solve the necessity of understanding the overall complexity of a software development. What it does is it produces a software what I asked for, but a software is not the only part of the information management system. It needs data, it needs knowledge. So there are a lot of teams involved from, for example, in Sirseri, Chennai campus, multiple teams will involve to develop a particular software. But it won't, not only here, not only in Chennai, they also need to talk to Hyderabad, Bangalore, and not only in India, they need to talk to Europe or US, and also the clients in US. So there's a huge coordination, communication happening. That is why it is still labor intensive. If you see manufacturing, to my understanding, they can automate the jobs to a greater extent, so that each people need to learn only one or two earlier, at least one or two technology or a mission, and that person can be made to do repeated job. In IT, they need still they can't do it because of the complexities. It is project driven or task driven. So a task requires multiple communication, and the system IT industry, like any other company, it is highly the opportunities are less. The opportunities are less, so there'll be a lot of politics. So when politics are high, for example, Team A won't give data to Team B because it is going to replace them, or it is going to undermine their contribution, which connects to your performance appraisal and the value, the financial benefit you get out of the performance appraisal. So we all end up fighting each other in the company, and AI are clueless on solving the people issues. So AI can do only a small part of writing code, which is definitely helpful, but it is not the major part of what we do. It is a minor part. The major part is convincing somebody, I'm not going to take your job, or at least convincing them that eventually I'll take your job, but now you need to give me. And that may be through threatening, or that may be through socializing. That is why IT companies force people to come to office. So they can't socialize when they do work from home. That is not enough. So tea time is important, breakfast or lunchtime is important. So it is complex system. The software development can be done with the software. It's all blatant media campaign, and that can, I think, never be done. But on the question of increasing employment, I think the general character of chip or the computing capacity and the software, again, a general character of a software on top of it. Now, on top of it, general character of AI is something beautiful in the technological development. You don't have that kind of technology in previous so-called technological revolution or the eras we had. So because of the general character, it can be tuned to work for any department. So from the production, from the delivery, from the sales, from the support. So that general character is something, somehow it became a basic, like electricity, water. So when something become basic foundation, it tends to evolve unless until there is an alternate technology which can give the general purpose. So when I mean general purpose, it is the usability across all space of the circulation of capital. So that is not yet being developed. So there is no point in thinking about declining in IT industry. Whenever there is a crisis, capital going to flow into IT because of the revolutionizing the production tool. So as war increases, there may be decline in certain projects, but the overall profitability are still high. That is why the inequality in the companies are huge. It's just 400 times the inequality between the CEO or the people who drive decision making and the actual people who work, the 99%. It's between the salary between them is just 400%. And it is just a salary. Salary is basically 10 to 20% of the topmost layer. They take the commissions, which are humongous, thousands of crores, all these. So that is why I think it will continue to grow. And AI, it is just they're overselling.
Right. Okay, that's a very different understanding than I had, and I guess some others also over here had. Thanks for explaining that to us. Okay, so any other thoughts, Rakhi, or anyone else? Otherwise, we can wind down, right? Okay, cool. Okay, thanks once again. Welkin Anumeha has just left because she was at a building which was shutting down, so she had to move out. And thanks, Rakhi, and everyone else for joining. What we had thought was we went in the direction that we were thinking of, but my takeaway from this is that we got to have some more specific conversations also around how these new technologies are being deployed in particular sectors, in particular fields of work, to kind of generate more actionable information for activists and for researchers who are engaging with this. So we will try and do that in coming sessions. Maybe different other forums can also take it up. I was hoping that the ecology forum within NAPM can actually take up the question of data centers and energy intensity of this kind of work. As well as, I mean, you pointed to the link with the of health, Comrade, which is something that we otherwise focus on. But I don't think in the little that I have noticed about it, I don't think we look at tech sector when we also talk about workers and health. We look at OSHA, occupational health and safety, but I have not come across something remarkable where tech employees were being discussed. Those are important takeaways for me and for our sort of team. So thank you for participating, for sharing your thoughts, and for this discussion. Very helpful. And we will wind down now and hope to see you all soon again.
Thanks for organizing. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was great chatting with everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.